Hey everybody, what's going on? Welcome to another episode of the Heavy Metallurgy Album Club. I am one of your hosts tonight. My name's Marty. Good to see you. And before we get to the other dudes here, I just want to remind people that our friend Jeff Wagner's house burned down. They lost everything in the fire. They lost 3 cats that were very dear to them in the fire. They are in the process of still trying to navigate through the fog of war, essentially. But yeah, if anybody hasn't looked into it or donated yet and you feel like you want to, the link is in the description to the GoFundMe page. It's amazing. The turnout has been amazing. It's the metal community is a wonderful, wonderful community of people. And it's funny, we get looked down upon maybe, but hey, we're great folks, and y'all, yep, thanks, Tony. And I don't know what more to say other than they're great people, and it's really, really sucks. So go to the GoFundMe, and a couple bucks here and there, it adds up quick. We appreciate you. Thanks, and cheers to you on all that stuff. But Logan, what's been going on? How you doing?
Man, doing pretty great. Thoughts go out to Jeff and everything, and especially losing, animals like cats and stuff. I understand that, and that's rough, man. That's rough. Still, eve of a holiday. I hope everyone has a great Thanksgiving. Very, very thankful to be here. Thankful to have been able to be a part of the album club for the past couple of months, man. It's been great.
Oh, cheers. We love having you.
Whoop, cheers whoop. Cheers to Marty. Cheers to Jim. Happy
Hell yeah.
Thanksgiving, everybody. Been awesome sharing it with you guys.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, still trying to catch up with end of year listening. As soon as I feel like I've found every single album I want to find from 2024, another one pops up. I got one queued up, Marty, that in a shared screen. This is Oryx's debut album, Primordial Sky, and I had spun it until about a week or two ago, and man, it's everything I look for in like a modern day sludge doom album. Like it's sludge, but without falling into the pitfalls of like stoner and more drug oriented, booze oriented sludge metal, and it has this more long, drawn out like doom tangent to it, and even sounds a bit like Neurosis at times. Tim, go check the channel. It could be. Go check the channel.
Well, I get to watch that tonight. Fun.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody, the review is up. I felt inspired to do a Pleasure to Kill review for no reason, and it's up if you don't want.
Oh, there's a reason. Let's be honest.
I mean, you can find that out later. One of the things I'm thankful for, though, is all the distinct opinions here on Heavy Metallurgy and the Album Club, and how all of these episodes are back cataloged. I was rewatching a fun episode from a couple months ago, the Watchmaker episode. That was great. And I was like, Jim's not here. Let's talk about Watchmaker. That was fun to hear the visceral reaction that Jim had to that album, and that was my. I picked this up earlier in the summer and hadn't really spun it that much until that review that you guys did. So I've enjoyed this album and did enjoy checking out that Watchmaker album that you guys reviewed, which was their debut. Don't remember the name of it, but it was like Kill Destroy or something. Erase, Kill, Destroy.
Something like that.
Something brutal. And then trying to pigeonhole the album that we're about to talk about, Dominator, I was looking at other bands from the NWOBHM scene that released stuff in 1988, and nothing sound like Dominator, but I do like Raven, as you can tell.
Raven rules.
And this is their 1988 album, Nothing Exceeds Like Excess. Felt appropriate ahead of Thanksgiving, huh?
Yep.
So here we go. This is a faster, like more thrash influenced Raven, I feel like. And I think Raven rules, as Marty said. And they're just a hard-working band that do not get the love that they deserve. And then always appreciate Marty's recommendations. And once again, trying to pigeonhole Dominator, I was looking at the German power metal scene. Been spinning a little bit of Scanner.
Oh, it's so
Grace.
good.
Yes. They're just to try to place Dominator. But yeah, this is an awesome album, and the sci-fi concept kind of fits here with the Dominator concept. But yeah, that's what I've been jamming.
All right. As everybody's probably noticed, Jim is not with us tonight. They're doing vacation holiday stuff with family. So much love to the Clifton 3 and hope they're all doing great. And we will see you next week. Kellen, how are you? What's going on?
Not much. Back from my work trip from Texas. So
did you do any record shopping?
I wish.
You're in Austin. There should have been some pretty killer record stores, I would think.
I wish I had the opportunity to get away. But one of these years, I won't have multiple responsibilities while working this big industry event. So, but yeah, what's going on? Once again, I'll sort of reiterate, this time of year, people start compiling our end of year thing. And I know that we'll have one here on heavy metallurgy.
Yep.
But
these two boys will be on it. So everybody get ready for that.
Not a, I don't know if I would want to include this. This is, you can call it a full length, but it's a grind release that's going to last, I think, about 20 minutes all told. So this is Deterioration, Paranoia, and Violence. American grind band here. If you dig that like Helmdale kind of stuff from the late 90s, early 2000s, this is 100% up your alley. It opens with the crazy minigun scene in Predator when Jesse Ventura gets blown through the chest, and then the guy comes around and just empties the gun and like just leveling the entire, like whatever, that minute long ammunition spray. That's like the opening to this record. So
that's essentially 2 songs worth of song samples.
2 songs, yeah. I think they all, if you're pushing 2 minutes on this record, you're sort of the longest thing there. But anyway, I dig that style, and this band's been around for a while doing really good stuff. So Paranoia and Violence from Deterioration. And if anyone potentially missed it, here's a little reminder. I pulled this off the shelf leading up to my conversation with Alan. This record got talked about a few different times, but this is Hymns of Blood and Thunder by Gates of Slumber. Release came out in 2009, I believe. But we did a joint review for Heavy Metallurgy this past Monday at 9 o'clock. So if you want to check out all things American Doom from this band that's been absent for essentially 13 years, we've got a new record, and Alan and I sat down to talk about it. So you can check that out.
Yes, absolutely. All right. Well, for me, I'm going to try to do a share screen thing here. I often fail at this, but I'm going to give it a try.
You did mine so well.
Well, yeah, but when I hit this, it like... What is going on? What is happening? I had to stay. There we go. So this popped up on my Spotify the other day. Was pretty surprised. Pitch Shifter Peel Sessions 1991 through 1993, which is for me the heyday of this band. And this rules. The first Gritter, what's on here? The first few songs, Gritter, Tendril, and Dry Riser Inlet. Dry Riser Inlet has got, the chorus is different lyrics. So it's just so mean and evil sounding. It's just killer. Absolutely killer. All the stuff is produced well, just meaner than the albums. I'm apparently this is coming out. I tried to find it on eBay, and there's like pre-orders up for it on eBay. So I don't want to pay $50 for it. But yeah, it's definitely been on my list. And this thing, let me pull up this Sorcery by Kataklysm. I talked about them a little bit during our Canadian metal discussion we had with Philip from Chromium Dioxide Radio. this is just a favorite. Brutal Canadian hyper grind or hyper blast from Canada, and the shining star of this band is Sylvain Houd or Hood or however you say his name. I don't know for sure, but fantastic, crazy singer, just over the top. Saw him live once during the Temple of Knowledge tour they did with Incantation, and I saw him in Bay City, Michigan, in a small VFW hall, and they just absolutely, he's just crazy, so good. Watch stuff online of him performing; it's amazing. And some show notes. Tomorrow there will be a Headsplit Records label spotlight. I shot the video and edited it last night, and this is one of the albums I'm going to talk about. How do you say this? Anthropophagus. Abuse of a Corpse. It's pretty funny. You look at the cover, look at the picture, you got a poop stained mattress there. You're thinking, I know what this is. This is going to be a little of the brie and the, the snapback hats and the, type stuff. But no, this is a band that obviously listened to a lot of death back in the day, and it's really good. Technical, but not so much that it's alienating. It's very much catchy, memorable, death metal vocals, but go mid-range. The technical nature of the album kind of makes it feel thrashy. I don't know. I was really surprised. Don't judge a book by its cover. This is pretty killer. And yeah, there's a bunch of other Headsplit stuff I've been spinning, but I'll save that for the video. You'll see it tomorrow night at 9 o'clock. That'll be up. I'll be in the chat to chat with any of you folks that want to see it. But tonight we are here to discuss the album Dominator by Cloven Hoof. A little bit of, how do you say it in other parts of the country? Is it hoof or hoof? Here it's hoof. I don't know.
I say hoof.
Hoof. Yeah. Cloven Hoof are an English heavy metal band from Wolverhampton, active from 1979 to 1990, and again from around 2000 onward. They were associated with the new wave of British heavy metal movement alongside bands such as Iron Maiden, Saxon, and Diamond Head. And during many lineup changes, only founding bassist Lee Payne has remained a constant member throughout the decades. Yeah, Dominator. Kellen picked it. What did you think, Logan?
All right. Yeah, this is one of those surprising first listens for me, Like, of course, I had heard of Cloven Hoof just being, brought up as one of the many new wave of British heavy metal bands. Never actually checked them out. Never really bothered to listen to any of their albums. So I definitely entered this blind and really thinking of just other new wave of British heavy metal band like sounds and stuff, Like I definitely feel bad for Cloven Hoof, and just for me it was all about their timing, and they missed the boat with their first album releasing in 1984, and then they waited too long with their second one with 1988, and they're kind of a band without a country, if you will. But needless to say, I was expecting a tried and true, more hard rocking, like new wave of British heavy metal sound, and my jaw dropped the first spin through the opening song, Rising Up. I mean, like that chorus hits and like the instrumentation, and the vocalist here, his name is Russ North, but his hooks and his powerful singing, I was not ready for Kellen to sneak in a power metal album here, but he did. Good job, Kellen. This is definitely not, and it's not like a European power metal album either. It's a bit more grittier too, and to me on first listen sounded a bit more American and like U.S. power metal leaning, combined with what Judas Priest and Iron Maiden were kind of doing maybe in 1986. So it was a fun first listen, and I picked up that the sound overall was earnest, dynamic, and kind of serious in tone. So I was blown away on the first spin, truthfully.
All right. I got to say, Logan, your comment, I feel bad for Cloven Hoof. I'm going to share another little share here. All right. Everybody take that picture in for a second. Take it in before everybody get a good look at it. Yep. This is Cloven Hoof, demo era, and I think their first album. Since this photo was taken, members of this band left, and the bass player replaced them with the people that we hear on Dominator, and they in turn disregarded their stage kookiness. Apparently, this was a big thing for them. They had a big stage show. Each one of them was earth, wind, fire, air. They all took on their own thing. And to me, it looks like Hanna-Barbera on ice. The Tale of the Bird People. And you got the bass player there. This is the main guy from Cloven Hoof, by the way. Look at him with his metal rocking hard rock face. It's hard to look like a metal guy when you look like a fantastical chickadee. Okay.
Yes.
So
the guy that's a leaf for his beard, correct?
Yeah, a leaf for the beard. Yep. And you got the Ace Frehley guitar player reject in hell. He's got the shoulder pads, the red makeup, the red cape from the he's a Dynasty era Kiss reject. Here is what we got.
Angel wings in the other side.
Yep. And then you got the jazz hands guy in the background, superstar. I don't know. So it's hard for me to feel real bad for Cloven Hoof seeing the photo. But having said that, I didn't just discover this photo until tonight doing a little extra research. I had to share that with the class. But my first listen through this record was, wow, okay. I think I even texted Kellen. I'm like, this is pretty damn good. It's good rockin' album. And I've just been back and forth on this thing all week. I like it. I don't like it. I like it. I don't like it. I've finally landed on like it. I've taken in the album enough where I get it. I know what's going on. But the thing that bugs me the most about this record is how interchangeable the rhythm section is. The drums, you could cut and paste each drum set out, each drum beat out, and put it in a different song, and it would not do anything. It's the same drum beat mostly. I'm going to get into the track breakdown here as we do our favorites and least favorites, but I think it's rhythmically very boring. I think, Logan said it's like a band without a home. It does kind of sound like new wave of British heavy metal, but it doesn't. It's weird. They don't sound English to me. I don't know. I don't know if I would have called it American. I don't know where the hell I put this. It doesn't matter. It's a good hard driving rock / heavy metal record. I ended up liking it. But I am not the world's biggest new wave of British heavy metal. I mean, I like the ones everybody knows. I like some Angel Witch. I like Iron Maiden, Judas Priest, all those bands that, everybody is common and knows. But, some of the stuff that Kellen and Alan dig deep into. Yep, exactly. This is coming from a guy that, it's different though. This is different. I don't know why it's different, but it's different. I mean, I think
cardboard dinosaurs, please.
Yes. I think the Angus stuff is so stupid too, but I don't know. There's just a little bit more fun and pizzazz in the Angus McSix music than there is with this is just, it's really good, well done heavy metal. It lacks some dynamics, but they do get there on some of the songs, but we will get there. But yeah, I've been back and forth. It's been a fun listen though. I've enjoyed it. Kellen, oops, I didn't mean to do that. I meant to do
You don't get it. Say.
Kick them out.
Kellen, sit in the box and be quiet.
This is a band that I immediately dug. I'd heard about for a while, and man, I just saw this album cover, and it's just like, yes, giant crazy woman with space age battle axe. Like, I will 100%. I don't know what this is, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be awesome. And it's always a band that kind of I don't want to say bothered me, but I immediately dug it, but at the same time, never was able to sort of reconcile where they are. I don't know why, for example, some bands I'm okay with, you listen to Ostrogoth, right? I listen to that band and I think, okay, they're kind of doing an Omen thing. And in some way I'm at peace with that sound. Cloven Hoof, for some reason, because they have this new wave of British heavy metal sort of context, I, for some reason, have a difficult time reconciling their American power metal sound. So it always was intriguing to me, but I always would come back to it being like, this is a nice, comfortable, sweet spot. This record's 8 songs, 40 minutes. It just felt like comfort food every time I would listen to it. So enjoyed pulling it up and listening to this past week. And I was eager to get your thoughts on it. So yeah.
You have a topic for us?
Sure. Just this is kind of inroads for the time period, right? So bands formed with all their Cape Crusader-ness in the late 70s, early 80s, the whole Elements thing. So first record comes out in 1984, though. You think like Defenders of the Faith, Power Slave. This is when new wave of British heavy metal is sort of peaking. By the time we get here to Dominator in 88, I don't really think of the new wave of British heavy metal having a major role. I think it's kind of left my consciousness, or in terms of being at the center of heavy metal by that time period. And the fact that this sounds so American, are you comfortable with this idea that they would be connected to the new wave of British heavy metal? Like, is it something that after listening to this record, you would associate them with that movement? Or like, where do you think they should be placed? How would you recommend them? You know, someone comes along and wants to know, what does Cloven Hoof sound like? Do you say like, oh, they're a new wave of British heavy metal band?
Yeah, it's misleading in a
Right.
way. You know, they might physically be, and I haven't heard the early stuff. So I don't know. Logan, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is the perfect question for this album. I mean, as you can kind of see with what I was listening to leading up to tonight's episode, I was already kind of asking that question, like, where do I put this band? Who are they? What are they trying to do? What scene are they contributing to? And I was definitely leaning away from NWOBHM as a scene overall. So, yeah, that was one of the main reasons I was shocked that this album and how it sounds harkens back to the new wave of British heavy metal. I mean, they don't sound like Raven or any other band from that scene, I don't think, you know? Like, for me, and it's been mentioned in the chat, the closest I could come with was the US power metal scene. 1988 was apparently a pretty big year for heavy metal and power metal as a, you know, new subgenre on the scene. And the US had a couple big hitters. We got Vicious Rumors with Digital Dictator and Riot Thundersteel also in 1988. And truthfully, if I were, you know, talking to someone about Dominator and Cloven Hoof, I think I'd be more likely to bring up them in this album in, you know, the context of talking about bands and albums that sound like this versus bands or albums that sound like Raven. I don't think I would ever be like, oh yeah, you gotta listen to Demon, you gotta listen to, you know, Wiped Out by Raven and Saxon and Cloven Hoof. I'm pretty sure that would not come up, because I did listen to their debut album earlier, the self-titled one, and it almost sounds a little bit behind the times, you know, for 1984, where Power Slave has come out. It sounds a bit more like maybe be more comfortable in 1982 or 81. This one, Dominator, sounds, yeah, just like it fits right alongside power metal as it's coming up, and because of it feeling a bit more gritty and like sci-fi, very much a US power metal sound. So I don't think I would bring it up naturally in a new wave of British heavy metal conversation, but I do still think that, you know, Cloven Hoof should still be considered a part of the NWOBHM scene. I mean, they should be a lesson on what not to do in a scene. Maybe release an album like 5 years into its beginning, and, you know, wear capes and leaves for beards and stuff, and but also maybe how to pioneer something else entirely different. But to me, it's still a bummer, because even though they pioneered or sound so distinct with Dominator, People don't really talk about it that much, and I think it's because they still get somehow tied to new wave of British heavy metal more so than power metal.
Before we get into this, I just wanted to show, people are mentioning the cover artwork. The artist was, his name is John Blanche. And here is the cover for tonight. Let me get that up here. I know you've all seen it in the thumbnails and whatnot.
Quick question though. Did they have to have this album cover?
I don't know.
Or does this tie into the concept at all? Because it's like sci-fi, but this looks like a dwarf lady.
Yeah, I don't know. Here's did this work? Let me go here.
You got it. I can see it.
Yep. That's the album cover for this album tonight, and we get this, and also another John Blanche album cover. History of a Time to Come by Sabbath. You see any similarities here? Apparently John Blanche has a type. He likes the gothic, either pagany, or he has the same character, a little more pagany on the Sabbath History of a Time to Come. So yeah, I thought that was Alan brought that up a while ago, and I'm like, huh, that's weird. And then yeah, sure enough, it's a thing.
How do you feel about the color orange and red? I kind of had a thing going. Yeah,
I'm making the thumbnail, and I'm like, this is the ugliest thumbnail I think I've ever done. It's just lame. The color scheme sucks. Everything about it sucks. But to answer your question, I think Cloven Hoof, a lot of English bands were behind the times, especially start getting into the mid to late 80s. You got this, these guys are labeled New Wave of British Heavy Metal. This is a late fourth quarter New Wave of British Heavy Metal album for me. And, they're competing with thrash and even thrash metal. The writing's on the wall for thrash because you've got these early death metal albums that are starting to creep in. It kind of leaves bands like this, it kind of leaves them in the waste for me. This doesn't mean they're not good. I don't have a nostalgic connection to them, so it's harder for me. I was trying to think, what is it about this record? I just don't have that nostalgic. I mean, I wasn't picking out New Wave of British Heavy Metal cassettes out of Camelot Music. It was thrash, US power metal, all that stuff. So I can listen to it and really appreciate it. But I think, getting back to the question, I think that they had a hard time of it. It feels like it's late. It's a really good record. There's a lot of good songwriting on it. There's some great singing on this record. It just feels a little too late to me. Do they still have the, are they still capable of being labeled as something, a point of pride of English heavy metal? Yeah, sure. I think it's just as good as a lot of stuff that was coming out then, but it just feels tired. It feels tired. It's a sound that, that the forefathers they came from the 70s. They put out 2 records between 1979 and 1988. And it just seems like they missed the mark. Too many, it's a band plagued by lineup changes. That always sets a band back. I don't care how ready a person is to jump into an empty position. It takes time for the band to gel. And obviously this band has suffered with it their entire career. So I think, this is still a good, solid heavy metal record. It's good to, be tagged as a British heavy metal album, but it feels, I can't say it's bad because I like it. I think it's decent. I just don't think it's exceptional. I don't think it's got a lot of competition, and intensity and heaviness and speed has really entered the heavy metal equation throughout the 80s. And it just feels like a tired metal record, a well-written, but tired metal record to me. I don't know if I answered your question, but anyway, Kellen.
Yeah. I mean, I think we'll that's a segue into the songwriting part of it, but I don't have Marty's sort of like nostalgic obstacle, right? Like,
it's a big thing for me. I know TJ it is too. I don't know. I have such a connection to the shit that I really delved into when I was younger.
So to your point though, like by 88, I do think it might be a little bit, late to the party, right? If you told me this record came out in 1984, I'd be like, okay, they're writing amongst peers. But to come out in 88, it just feels like even the American power metal scene that had really built this sound that I hear in Dominator has started to come down the other side of the mountain. So it's an interesting thing though, because for me, like how much this record or even the genre that sort of informs its background, I think has a very kind of limited time frame by comparison to other genres. Like when I think the new wave of British heavy metal, there's an end date there. Where I don't think about other genres, like I don't think there's an end date in the same way we talk about death metal or thrash. Like for some reason, there's a little more evergreen there. When you say the new wave of British heavy metal, you can't put out a new wave of British heavy metal record that I think about that scene in, you know, today. So for me, there is like a time stamp as to when that could potentially end. 1988 seems to have surpassed it, but
yeah.
That I guess I'll use that as a segue, and we'll kind of move on to the musicality and composition of this record. It's for me very much building off of a sound that probably exists between 1983 and 1985. Man, like the second track here, which I'm pretty sure is the, like if you were to ask if Nova Battlestar on that track, that is almost the vocal cadence to that chorus reminds me 100% of Manila Road.
This is my least favorite song on the album, actually.
It's just the way the first off, I think the lead character is our Nova Battlestar heroine.
I mean, which one? The one on the Sabbath album cover, or the one on the
on here for Dominator?
She's the villain on the Sabbath cover, I think.
Anyway, so I guess what I would say is like it has a sound for me that is so much steeped in early American power metal. I don't hear a lot of the like traditional new wave of British heavy metal tropes, especially that stuff that came around in the early 70s. That's the sound that I really kind of associate with that. So for me, though, this is also the first time they get this singer. So Russ North, this is his first record with the band.
Yep.
And for me, like, I absolutely think that this is like where you live and die on this record. His vocals are the standout performance, and I think that's probably contributes to like the first thing I gravitated here. I love the range. He doesn't go super high. There's not like a bunch of big falsetto moments on this album. When he does go there, I feel they are like well chosen spots. But outside of that, I just dig like the and I guess the way it feels like it embodies the part of American power metal that just felt like very sort of blue collar street, that side of things. And it's a style that I really dig. So I don't necessarily mind the fact that it sounds familiar to stuff that was coming out maybe 4 or 5 years earlier. It just sits in that little pocket for me. And in that sense, it's like a very familiar kind of sound that I dig.
Right on. All right. Well, let's talk about the musicality and composition. Logan.
I mean, as I alluded to, yeah, I think this album fits along the company of America's kind of first brand of power metal, and really as they started to transition into heavy metal. Like I already mentioned Vicious Rumors and Riot, and honestly, I hear that, you know, early mid-era Queensryche a little bit on this too. So, but when I do hear NWOBHM, I specifically hear Judas Priest and Iron Maiden around that mid 80s. Like I specifically hear Power Slave and from 1984. You already mentioned it, Kellen, that one Judas Priest album with
Defenders of the Faith,
Metallica on it. Yeah, Defenders of the Faith, with like some of the guitar riff writing and stuff. So I do think the tone is dark and earnest, and the band sounds more mature than, you know, one releasing their second full-length album. But if you take into context their whole, you know, career, that like this is almost their 10th year as a band, it kind of does make sense. There must have been a lot of lineup changes, is all I can say, for this to be their second full-length. I think for when you first dive in and as you're listening to and digesting Dominator, though, the true standout is, as you mentioned, Kellen, Russ North's vocal performance. And for me, it's kind of right where I want them. Like I am not a power metal fan, as you know, we all know. But when I do enjoy power metal, it's very much where the singer's more of a mid range. He knows how to rein it back. There's a lot of weight behind the vocals, but he's not like, it's not soaring, it's not angelic, it's not operatic. It's like controlled kind of. And he has a lot of strength, but also restraint, and he does match the tempo of the music, I think, as it's going. So, and that allows, when he does let loose, it allows it to hit all the harder and be more impactful. And there's a couple songs where he does it perfectly, and it, I don't know, it really makes the album for me. So, as far as the other instrumentation here, I do think they kind of sound like that new wave of British heavy metal band, and specifically the Iron Maiden Judas Priest I was bringing up, like 1985-ish. That's a lot of speed, a lot of very like Judas Priest riffs, kind of. Unlike you, Marty, I didn't hear the same rhythm section beat. I mean, maybe now that you've mentioned it, the spell is broken, and that's all I'll be able to hear. But
yeah, they do.
Yeah,
we'll get there. We'll get there.
Like I thought the rhythm section did a lot of like making the song interesting, but maybe that's because I'm focusing on the guitar and the vocals first, and then I'm noticing the rhythm section after. But I was definitely entertained by what the drums were doing and what the bass also was doing, which I guess it makes sense that the bassist is like the main member. I thought he was doing a good job on this album, and it sounded like he was appropriately up in the mix where you could actually, hear what he was saying, or playing. But one of the things that does come up with this album, though, is the fact that it is a concept album. And like the Scanner album I showed earlier, it's a sci-fi. We're going for battle dwarves in outer space, apparently. And I think it kind of hampers the listen for me a little bit towards the second half, like the let's see. The problem is that they don't always know how to incorporate certain elements of the storytelling, I feel like, in their songwriting. And on the second half of the album, certain sections kind of feel bogged down by Russ, the vocalist, not knowing how to narrate, and he kind of steps out of like singing into like a spoken word section and tries to be a bit more verbose and have an odd explanation about what's going on, and it kind of takes me out of the songwriting and the track. So the second half kind of throws me off a little bit with how they're trying to incorporate the concept. But other than that, I think it's a pretty strong contender for more of a power metal sound, more so than a NWOBHM sound. But that's my take.
Kellen.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, but for me, they just have a kind of American power metal sound that, for me, I associate with from like would have been 1984, 1983, 1985. It's simplistic. The guitar work here, I actually, the pacing of this record for me is broken by really 3 pillar songs, which is the opener, Rising Up. Warrior of the Wasteland starts at a slower tempo. We get a little bit dramatic pause and a big sort of song vocal that bleeds us into the riff. Like, I dig that part. And I actually will differ here with Logan. I dig Road of Eagles, which has a little bit of this narration to close the record. Though it kind of sits track 1, track 4, and track 8. And they break this record up for me in a way that's a bit more manageable. In between there, I do think what they lack is enough variation to sort of separate those songs. It becomes a little bit more like just cruising through a record as opposed to paying individual attention. I really had to try and dig in to notice which songs were, which separated them. So for me, it's much more about like an appreciation towards a kind of very general sound rather than
Yeah.
Individual successes as the songs pass through.
Yep.
But once again, for me, front and center, it's the performance of Russ North here. He's got like that middle tone. He's not on the upper reaches. He sits somewhere that makes completely like part of what, you know, JD Kimball works so well is for me is what is like, he has some range, but his general level, like where he begins in his vocal range, sits somewhere that's a little bit lower. And that works really well for me for an American power metal vocalist. And for this, in that sense, as a new wave of British heavy metal band that's playing in this style, I think Russ is well suited for their sound.
All right, songwriting, composition, musicality, composition. The album for me, I think the way it sounds, the album as a whole has a good feel, but you start breaking down the elements, it's pretty basic. The songs revolve around not necessarily riffs or like chord progressions. That's the bulk of these songs. You want to get into it where they start throwing in some licks, like some different kind of riffs that come in. Those are few and far between, other than on let me get my track list up here. I closed it. Oh no. Here we go. Warriors of the Wasteland, great song. Dominator. It's another, they break away from that 1, 2, 3, 4 chord progression. There's some stops. The drummer can throw some fills in. It breaking the songs up with different dynamics and different changes. That isn't just this the whole time. This album feels very much this the whole time. Same tempo. All the songs are very similar tempo, very similar drum beat. Until you get to those few songs where there's like some breakdowns, some cool transitions that builds excitement. I'm thinking, where was this? I mean, we don't get that until we get to the 4th song on the album, Warrior of the Wasteland. And then for me, starting from Warrior of the Wasteland on, the second half of this album is pretty damn good. I really like the second half better than the first half, although the opening track is very good. I think this is an album that is built on the strength of their singer, Russ is a very good singer. He struggles a bit on the battle, Nova Battlestar. I'll get to that in my dislikes when we get to the track section of it. But I think this is a solid metal record. The keeping it one tempo, the hard drive has a very, like new wave of British heavy metal. It's influenced by rock music. And there's still a feel of the rock clinging to this, where people are saying Omen. When I listen to Omen, I hear a lot more Iron Maiden at times. Not all the time, but there's times. And where Cloven Hoof, they're from the new wave of British heavy metal. They're from England. They don't sound Maiden at all to me. I don't hear any Maiden in this. There's no.
Look like they're trying to leave them.
Yeah, it's
right?
like they're trying to I don't know, leave that whole thing behind. Because no one likes the local bands. No one likes the local bands. That's the way it goes. But yeah, musicality, composition, I think it's solid. It's rock solid to a fault at times. But still, in spite of it, they eke out a good sound. They eke out a good feel. It's a good, solid rock/metal record. In spite of that, let's talk about the production, Logan.
First, I want to say I'm surprised you're very much approaching it as a rock and metal record versus like a power metal album.
Power metal would be a lot more double bass. It'd be
yeah.
There's no, if you listen to it, it's just throughout the whole thing, just faster. The double bass doesn't jump off the page to me on here. But the vocalist does have that feel. I get you. But the music is very rock metal mixed to me.
As someone who's still like figuring out what it is I like or don't like about power metal, that's kind of why I'm asking. Because
putting music into genres is hard.
It's
hard.
Like a power metal album to me.
Yeah, it's hard, and it's always people's individual tastes make it wrong every time. So I mean, I could be completely wrong here, but
because he is wrong. According, he's I think at 43% now after 2 weeks.
It's growing. If I leave that poll up for another 5 years, I'll catch you.
Wrong.
Black metal record, my ass. Everybody's wrong. Anyway,
untrue.
Sorry, Logan.
Well, this power metal album for me, like the production is actually one of the issues I have with it. Which it kind of is a major issue. I think there are like two layers to the production. The top layer is Russ North's vocal performance, and the other layer is everything else. Like they put the vocals very much in front of everything, and they definitely do it well. Like his vocals sound great, and outside of him doing the spoken word stuff, I think he sounds pretty phenomenal vocally, and especially in the production, very upfront, very like a lot of power behind it. But all the other instruments sound like a step back. Like I almost have to strain to kind of hear what they're all doing. It's another layer I have to unearth, and especially when Russ is singing on top of the the backing instruments, everything else kind of gets drowned out a little bit. And I do have to admit, this was a tougher album to track down to listen to. Like I had to either listen to a stream I found on YouTube or a torrent. It does happen. Sorry.
2024. Wow.
Yeah, I know. Wow, what a surprise. So maybe it could be because of that, and I'm not just listening to the actual mix, and it's just been torrented a whole bunch by the time it gets to my ears. But still, when I'm able to focus in on the actual instrumentation, which it still sounds like it's almost in another room, everything does sound fairly audible. Like during the instrumental breaks, I can make out the bass. I can feel the impact of the drums. I can hear all the guitar flourishes. Like I think the guitar work is actually pretty creative to me, and the solos and stuff are, creative and really add a lot to the song.
Solos are a good standout on the record, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. And still, I sometimes have to strain my ear to hear everything, versus I'd rather it be a little bit more upfront if I could, have my say. And also just the production around the edges of the sound, it kind of sounds a bit fuzzy. And this, once again, could be just how I'm listening to it.
Ton of reverb on this record.
Okay, yeah. So then that's it. It just sounds, there's some weird crackling, and yeah, it could just use a little bit of a cleanup, I feel like, as a production. But it doesn't take away entirely from the music, but it's not adding to it, if that makes sense. So that's my take.
All right, Kellen.
Yeah, I have in my notes. I have "Whoa, mama, that guitar sound." It really is, to your point, like a record that you pull off and listen to with either like that's something you are wanting to sort of experience, is just the ugliness of it. It's really just, to your point, whether when you mentioned the drums on this, if there was dynamic double bass, I don't know how audible it would be, or
it doesn't feel like it's there.
If there was some insightful, incredibly articulate rhythm work, and the riff writing was unbelievable, it would be veiled. Like it's just a wash of reverb. So trying to like peer underneath that blanket to see what actually songs are going on is pretty difficult through this. It's like the Broker's Helm or something like that, where you sort of experience the record in spite of its, sloppiness.
Even Manila Road had moments where their production was good, but when he was recording stuff in his basement, it was the material and the quirkiness of his voice that shined through.
For some reason, right? Like we're forgiving of that.
It's weird how that works, isn't it?
Right. It's weird. And the same thing you could say with other American power metal bands. Kira Thungal has the same thing early on, especially.
Now you're saying it. He's got you saying it. Are you sure you're not Alan in a Kellen skin suit?
When we did,
I'm saying it now too because I hear him say it all the time. It's Kirith.
Right.
The band even calls it Sirith. Anyway,
like the
love you, Alan.
It just, for some reason, I notice it that much more on this record, and for like I constantly am wanting at some point like greater clarity and insightfulness into what's happening. So at some level, like we want this kind of music to still retain a level of like undergroundness. But this feels like a step too far to where it serves as a detraction on the record. It's just sloppy, messy, and it's going to be one of those things that people either, accept as something that was going on during this era in the 1980s, or you are immediately offended by how difficult it is to sort of peer through this production. So,
yeah.
But that being said, I will agree with the sort of location of Russ's vocals. He is well positioned to sort of shine on this record for sure.
And I guess the breaking point here is it depends on how much you like the material. If you love the material, the production is almost an afterthought. When you're kind of so on the material, the production just adds to the problem. But I'm with Frosty on a lot of this here. This to me sounds like a lower budget 70s production. It's good. It has a live feel to it, like the band just kind of got in the studio and jammed it. It's got a live jamming out kind of vibe to it, but it's draped in reverb. There isn't it gives it kind of a mushy loose feel, which for the style of music, they're not playing super technical. There's not a lot of really tight dueling riffs. It's just a lot of chord progression, standard rock drumming type of stuff, which you can get away with a production that's slacking a bit. But Russ's vocals sitting where it sits in the mix, it really adds to the caliber of this record, and as does the solo sound. The lead tone cuts pretty well through this din, and the solos and Russ's vocals tend to be the two standouts for most of the tracks, for me anyway. But the production isn't heinous. It just is what it is. It just doesn't, for 1988, it's lacking in a lot of ways. It just is. I mean, music has gotten faster and tighter. Drummers have gotten better. I don't want to compare, Cloven Hoof to Agent Steel or Holy Terror or whatever, but this is where they're at in the metal sphere. It's metal. It's got competition, and it does not sonically or what they're doing. It just doesn't seem to fit in this era. Now, I'm not saying that to be negative, because I like old shit too. We all do. We all have a soft spot for some of the old stuff, the old Priest, the old Maiden. But somehow some bands just can weather the years better than others. And Cloven Hoof, for me, that falls between the cracks, both sonically and with what they're doing. Even though I still do like the album, it doesn't sound like I do, but I ended up liking it, oddly enough. Let's talk about least favorite songs. Logan.
Yeah, I definitely like the first half of the album better, and this is why I was.
Whoa!
Was
keep it together, Logan.
I'm trying. It's the day before Thanksgiving, guys. Give me a break. I disagree with, or I'm trying to figure out why you like the second half versus the first half, Marty. And
They break it up. They break up it isn't just the same flow. There's some peaks and valleys to some of the songs.
But the first half sounds so much more power metal oriented, and the second half sounds like they're grasping at the straws of what their NWOBHM elements were. Like, they sound the most Iron Maiden and Judas Priest on the second half to me.
But musically, it's more bland power metal at the front half. The second half, they're starting to do some stuff within that the parameters. They're adding more dynamics.
That's my answer. I don't know what's bland or what is exciting power metal. I just
yeah.
I just know I like this. I don't listen to a lot of power metal, so
we'll change that. Don't worry.
I don't know.
Age and us, we will change that between the two.
We'll see about age, but yeah.
It comes with age.
You guys will help. Let's see. But opening song, Rising Up, I thought that was a great introduction to the album. It's a good song. And I think it shows off the strengths, It's got, to me, the speed of the album. The chorus is there, and when he sings that chorus, rising up, like all the instruments and everything just back him, and they all feel like they're they're taking you flying, kind of. It's very anthemic, and I just love the chorus and how it feels, and just the overall feel of the song is, as I said, more earnest and fist pumping than what NWOBHM was. So, also great guitar solo on here. Got to talk about the guitar solos. This one was perfect. My favorite song on the album, and truthfully, probably, I don't know, it's going to be a song I will revisit over and over again. Reach for the Sky, track number 3. Holy shit. This is worth the price of admission alone for me.
Russ kills it on this song.
He kills it. And he kills it on every part of this song, too. Like, how he builds and structures, like, the verses. Like, the melody and the verses are, like, already catchy. Like, it's already a catchy song just in the verse melody. And then he takes it to, like, the pre-chorus, which sounds just, almost like it could be a strong chorus for some bands. And then after that, he goes one step up for that Reach for the Sky chorus. So I absolutely love this song and how he does his vocal inflections and, kind of transforms the chorus throughout the track. It helps. And I think every single instrument is kind of firing on all cylinders too. Once again, great guitar solo. Second favorite song on the album, Warrior of the Wasteland, probably the most dynamic track here, and one that I will also revisit along with Reach for the Sky. I think it sounds very Queensryche and kind of Judas Priesty, and it starts to feel a bit more of that new wave of British heavy metal sound. But there's a cool riff in here too. So I just love the dynamics of Warrior of the Wasteland. And then the second half of the album, I definitely, I don't know. I feel like it's a bit more stuff I've already heard from, like, the NWOBHM scene, and this is when they start to incorporate the concept album a bit more into it, and there's these spoken word parts, and it just gets a bit. It's still good. I still like it, but I don't like it as much as the first half. So, like, I think the invasion starts. It's the most uninteresting song to me off the album, and it starts the spoken word concept stuff. The Fugitive is great, but I think the chorus sounds like a straight up Iron Maiden song. I mean, we've all heard The Prisoner. This is The Prisoner Part 2 to me.
One of my favorite songs off of Number of the Beast, actually. Love that song.
Me too. Yeah. I mean, I do like it. It's not a negative thing, but it's and then as I hinted to earlier, I'm not crazy about the closing track. Where did I write down the name of it? On the Backs of Eagles or something?
Yeah, it's
Road of Eagles.
Road of Eagles. We're on the Road of Eagles. I didn't know they drove. But
well, obviously you saw the costume with the wings at the beginning, so they do drive.
You're right.
Fantastical Chickadee is the name of that one.
They do have to get somewhere somehow. But no, and I think this shows how maybe I'm still missing a certain piece of the puzzle when it comes to this power metal album, because you are having a certain guest on Friday, the Coliseum, right?
Yep.
I read
Yep.
I read a pretty phenomenal review of this album on the Coliseum website, and they absolutely loved the closing song for The Road of Eagles. So, and they quoted the whole chorus and said it was the best thing. So, this is a Coliseum approved album, but I feel like it sounds a bit clunky, and kind of just tougher to get into. It doesn't flow as well as the rest of the album. So I'm definitely a fan of the first half, and specifically Reach for the Sky. I will definitely start championing that song to anyone who will listen.
Oh yeah. All right, Kellen.
Yeah, so for me, the part in Rising Up when he's like, stand up and be counted, I was like, yes, that is, raise my hand, whatever. I jumped to the front of the line, 100%.
Venom Band has a song called that too, don't they?
Yeah. It's just like he pointed it straight into the crowd, and I was looking back. I was like, yeah, that's me. I'm here for that. So
he got his bird suit on. He's like, caw, caw.
whatever. I got the maple leaf on right here. That's what I'm doing. I'm
Got
the
my-
earth,
On
the
my
earth element. Or
chin
whatever.
and on my pubes.
Yeah. You can be the wing guy, the chickadee.
Yeah, I'll be the chickadee.
Yeah, but so yeah, Rising Up is like a great way to begin this album. I mentioned before, I like, to your point, so Reach for the Sky is great, but I feel like leads into sort of like a formula that is probably happens early on in this record, and they don't quite reach what is going on that song. So like Parts of Me for Invaders and Fugitive, Dominator, they sort of circle around that world for me, that Reach for the Sky has. So I don't necessarily dislike those songs that come on the back end of the record. Just after Warrior of Wasteland, I love that it feels like you kind of wipe the slate clean on this record, and it's like a table setter. So you come back, you get a sort of really quiet beginning moment, and then it sort of leads into something a bit more anthemic. Yes, Call of the Sex Condor. You 100% Tim. Yeah.
That was the Pleasure Finch.
Man, all the different birds. Okay.
It's a different breed totally.
Yes.
A new shirt coming soon.
So I don't know what's going on with Logan and I are completely on opposing sides of Road of Eagles. For me, the one thing that I always hear on that song is we get a really distinct, they've like double tracked the lead guitars during that. So you get like a dueling lead guitar moment on that record, on this record, and it sort of stands out on this closer. There's like a Marshall sort of snare, there's spoken words. I think in terms of adding elements into their songwriting, it's a great way to close this album. So it's a standout track for me. If I'm going to pick three, it's going to be Rising Up, Warrior of the Wasteland, and Road of Eagles. Those are the three tracks I recommend. I don't think there's really any major failures here. It's just at some point they kind of write in a comfort zone that you're either going to co-sign because you enjoy it, just like the production, or it's going to sort of wear you out a little bit. So,
all right. I gotta say, starting off the album, Rising Up, good track. It's a good representation of the album. Basically, it's it establishes the tempo for majority of the album. It shows off they're basically chord progression based songs. When the licks come in, it makes that part of the song feel a little bit more special, which is cool. Russ is a great singer. Great start for me. Warrior of the Wasteland. Oh wait, let's get to this. My least favorite, Nova Battlestar. The main problem with this song isn't this really the music. The music is really dissimilar to the rest of the album. Russ's vocal cadence, he follows the riffs verbatim through most of the song, and it drives me crazy. It's like, he's establishing himself as this really good singer. He's establishing his own vocal melody lines over the top of, pretty basic riffs. When he falls in lockstep with those riffs, it's just like, oh God, no. I could not wait for the song to end. But then they followed up with Reach for the Sky, which is like, holy crap, 180 degree turn. He is like laying on these soaring, beautiful vocal lines. It's just like, wow, what a step up from the song before it. So Reach for the Sky is a definite standout. Other two for me is Warrior of the Wasteland and Dominator. The two standout tracks due to the fact they offer a bit more dynamics and depth. Like I said, the album does this, but when they start throwing in these cool little fills and transitions and moving into different ideas within a song, it makes the song more exciting. I just wish, all the material is good. It just isn't exciting, which I don't need it to be woo all the time. But I'm just saying, since the whole album is basically the same tempo, you need to do something to break up that flow, or it becomes wallpaper. It becomes musical wallpaper to me, anyway. I said all that. No, yep, that. And Road of Eagles. they show a little bit of their influence on here. There's a moment towards the end of the song where it's basically the beginning of Heaven and Hell by Black Sabbath. The Sing Me a Song, You're a Singer, you know, the dun 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 dun. They kind of get into that for a couple measures. I'm like, oh, really? I mean, it was like almost note for note. But then it goes, it's like a brief thing. And since I've been a little bit more nitpicky on this one, I perseverated on it a little bit too much. I don't think it's the world's best closer, but I would have went out. I wish I could say that they should have went out with a banger, but when the whole album feels kind of the same, I don't know what their banger is. I don't know what they could have done to gone out with a bang here. So maybe taking stuff away and making it feel a little slower at times was a smart choice. I don't know. But yeah, for me, that's the breakdown. It's more or less a very consistent album. I really do enjoy from Warrior of the Wasteland on. I think the album gets better. They get a little bit more interesting in their songwriting. Transitions get a little bit more impactful, which it goes a long way in an album like this. Let's talk about our judgment. Final thoughts, Logan.
Yeah. So this year I've actually been enjoying a lot of U.S. power metal and kind of epic heavy metal in general. I mean, Omen was already talked about earlier, and earlier in the year on Metallurgy.
Where are you with Manila Road? Are you a fan?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I don't own many of their albums, but what I do have, I love. So,
oh God,
yeah,
they're so good.
Crystal Logic is my favorite so far, but I need to dive deeper in. But I think this album easily fits with like some of the albums that I've really been revisiting a lot. I've been jamming the ones I showed earlier, Digital Dictator, Thundersteel. Actually, Warlords Deliver Us has been a go-to for me as well. And I think this one could fit into this like rotation. So I'm just excited to kind of continue to jam this album. I think it's definitely flawed and a bit overly ambitious, and because of that, it has clunky moments and times where the production is not what it should be, or the songwriting is not what it should be, and it does fall short on some of the tracks for me. But despite that being said, I think it really is a true forgotten gem that I would have never gotten around to listening to if not for Kellen and Heavy Metallurgy here. Like, I don't think I would have ever checked out this random album with a dwarf babe on the cover.
That's the joy of album club.
That's not for me.
Yep.
That's indeed. And I would chalk this up as a success. I mean, the triumphant songs, they hit hard in just a very good power metal sense for me. And it's funny that's what I like about this album is the pieces that sound the most power metal oriented.
Good.
I know it's starting all as planned. I now see what this series is good for. But even the concept, I think, behind the album is a unique characteristic for it, and something that I'll probably want to revisit. Like, you know, what else? What is the full story that they're trying to tell with these like starships and, you know, hot dwarf chicks and stuff? So I have enjoyed this album, and I'm ready to start spreading the word to fellow metal fans, because this is not one that has really seen the light of day, I think. And warts and all, this deserves a listen from people. So I think this is it's right at an 8, not above, but right at an 8 out of 10.
All right. Kellen, you picked it. What'd you think?
Yeah, I mean, I dig this band. It's kind of like worked its way into sort of second, third tier in this world, right? Due to the time and the location that they came out. They never really were positioned in a way to be at the top or at the front of anything. So you sort of get to them a little bit later, and as a consequence, I think in that regard, like, I totally love this album for all of its charm and shortcomings. It's part of the reason that I think it's sort of a unique project. And because of the lineup changes through the years, they've kind of bounced around. They're still active. So
Yeah.
I have not heard like a Cloven Hoof album from 2024. I'm kind of nervous to approach it, but for like this time period from their like mid to the 80s to the early 90s, I think they are kind of like an interesting band to check in. And if people liked Dominator, like check out their first record. It's a little bit more of like a early 80s new wave British heavy metal album. The follow-up is kind of continues in this style, but for this time period, they're a band that if you haven't heard, I think are worth your time.
Yeah, I've been all over the place on this record this week, and I kind of have to base it on this. It at the end of the day, if I was at a party and someone was playing this, I'd be fine. It'd be great. I'd be like, yeah, this is good. It's cool. If it was in my collection sitting on a shelf, am I picking it off that shelf very often? Man, I don't know. Probably not. I just, again, I don't have a nostalgic connection to the more underground new wave of British heavy metal bands. And although I put it on this week, the more I've spun it, the more I've liked it. And having said that, I got to the point where I wanted to call this a 6, but the strength of the vocalist and the solo work, it's up to a 7 for me, which is still a good grade, I guess. But and Alan's been talking about this band a lot on Let's Talk Metal. Everybody go check out Let's Talk Metal, and of course Heavy Metallurgy. And I've always been curious, and it was very cool to finally sit and listen to a Cloven Hoof album, and I like it. I think it's good. I don't think it sounds like traditional new wave of British heavy metal, but for 1988, maybe that's a good thing. Maybe it's a good thing. Maybe they were trying to do something different in 1988, and this is the best they could do at this point. You know, I haven't heard anything past it. I don't have Heir Apparent either, Tim, unfortunately. Tim, I got to get your damn package out. I keep forgetting to send that. So, oh, wait, I did send it. Never mind. Package is coming, Tim. I don't know. Shit's, my brain's up my ass most of the time. Anyway, 6 out of 10 for me, or 7 out of 10 for me. It's a grower. It's a definite grower. And it's got some good moments and a great singer. It would have been good to hear a little bit tighter production with a bit more treble to it, some high ends to it.
Elk
right.
Warrior Maiden 10.
I agree. So yeah, there you go. And Kellen, good pick. Like I said, that's the joy of Album Club. Whether we like what we're being subjected to or not, it's still, that's the whole point of the show. If we all love every single thing every single time, it'd be a very boring show every week. But Alan, what do you rank this record? You're here. Curious. You should have been on here defending it. While he's conjuring that. I guess I'm picking tonight. Is that the thing?
Yes.
I was going to pick a power metal record, but I figured this tonight was kind of a pseudo leaning power metal. Yeah, okay, I think that's I'm surprised. Yeah, him and I aren't that far off the mark here.
That's surprising to me. I ranked this higher than Alan.
Yeah. Right on. But I was going to pick a power metal record, but I'm going to save that for down the road a bit. But this has been on my list since we started the show. It's time. It's time to get this done. It's going to be an interesting album to see what everybody thinks, but we're going with Death Row, Deception Ignored. It is time. The third Death Row album. I could have picked Raging Steel. That would have probably went over a lot better with the group, but I'm not the world's biggest fan of super over technical music. This is very technical, but just because I spent so much time with it back in the day, I know every note on this in my head. It makes total sense, even though it probably doesn't make total sense. So, yep, Deception Ignored, Death Row. That's what's happening next week. And other show notes. There was an excellent collaborative review that was posted on Monday night with Kellen and Alan, as he mentioned earlier in the show, talking about the latest Gates of Slumber, self-titled Gates of Slumber album. And tomorrow there will be at 9:00 p.m. Eastern time a Headsplit label spotlight that I just shot and edited. That's going out tomorrow. So it's basically 8 mini reviews into one 15-minute video. And Friday is our first pre-recorded heavy metallurgy. It is with Dan from the Colosseum. He's returning, and we've got Janne Stark from the bands Overdrive and the other band I can't remember, but he also wrote the Swedish Heavy Metal Encyclopedias Volume 1 and 2. Very, very awesome guy. Super. So we got two of the most boots on the ground, passionate Swedish metal connoisseurs back to talk about Swedish metal part 2. So that will be up on Friday, and Alan and I will be in the chat. Janne and Dan said they might both also be in the chat as well. So everybody, that's close, Alan, but that's not it. If you're talking about Janne's other band, it starts with a C though. It's long. I can't remember the name of it, but yeah. So come check that out. Please go donate to the Wagner family. Link in the description and the GoFundMe, and go check out Let's Talk Metal. I don't know what. Yeah, I just read your name, so go check out Let's Talk Metal. Go check out Killing for Company. Go check out Metal and Beer Snob. Do you guys have anything to add before we jump ship? Pleasure to Kill review over on Metal and Beer Snob.
Yeah, Extreme Aggression review. Debuting tonight.
Oh, it's going to happen again. You know it's going to happen. It's going to happen to one of us. And it's
not going to be me, though. I'm done now.
That's so I get about 3/4
I
in.
double-checked Dominator a couple times
I started asking questions. Sure. Is this the right? Am I listening to the right album? Yeah. How about you, Kellen?
Is Riders of Doom next week?
Yeah. Yeah, you wish. Deception ignored. What's going on over at Killing for Company, Kellen? Anything good?
I have my Capital Audio Fest video that's being edited right now. So hopefully with the next few days that'll get up for you.
That'll be fun. Cool. All right. Everybody in the chat, you rule. Cheers. Have a great night. And we will see you all Friday night. The same bat time, same bat channel. Oh, okay. Since he mentioned it, more show notes. Hopefully Monday there will be a review of Halloween's Live at Budokan done by me because I'm apparently contractually obligated. So prepare for what you got to prepare for. It'll be great. Anyway, cheers everybody. We'll see you on Friday. Have a great night. Happy Thanksgiving for all those who celebrate it. Cheers.